Smoke filled the sky. The battlefield was silent now, broken only by the sound of crunching ash under worn-out boots. Dane, a human soldier, moved slowly through the ruins, his rifle raised, his eyes alert. His unit was gone. He was the last one left. This war had taken everything: his friends, his peace, and his sleep. The enemy was alien, fast and deadly. But now, something strange caught his eye. A shape, small and moving, crawling from under broken metal. Dane quickly pointed his weapon, finger ready to shoot. It was a woman. No, not human. She had silvery skin, glowing violet eyes, and thin tendrils flowing from her head like hair. Her clothes were torn, her body shaking, bleeding from her side. She looked up at him with fear, but also something else. Something soft. Dane's finger twitched on the trigger. One more pull, and she'd be gone. One less alien to worry about. But before he could act, she whispered, barely loud enough to hear, "Spare me, and I'll give you a family." His breath caught. The rifle didn't move, but his mind did. What did she just say? A trick? A trap? Some alien mind game? She didn't move, didn't even lift a hand to block his aim. She just lay there, eyes wide, voice calm and broken. "I'm not your enemy," she said. "I just want to live." Dane frowned. He had heard lies before, heard enemies beg, cry, pretend. But something about her words felt different. Real. Memories stabbed into him. His wife, lost in the second wave of attacks. The small photo he carried in his chest pocket, creased and worn. His unborn child, gone before it took its first breath. He had nothing left. Still, he couldn't trust her. Not yet. He stepped closer, rifle steady. "What do you mean, family?" he asked, his voice rough. She coughed, a soft sound. "I escaped the breeding centers, the cages, the machines," she said. "I don't want power. I don't want war." She lassie oaked at his face, searching for something. "I want to belong." Dane didn't lower his gun, but he didn't fire either. The woman, no, the alien, looked too weak to fight, too tired to run, and her eyes. They were sad, not wild. "You have a name?" Dane asked, finally. She blinked slowly. "Lyra." He nodded once, then turned the safety on and slung his rifle back over his shoulder. "Get up if you can," he said, not kindly, but not cold either. Lyra tried, but stumbled. Dane sighed, stepped forward, and helped her up. Her body was warm but light, like she was barely alive. He didn't know why he was doing this. He should have left her, should have ended it, but something in his chest refused to stay quiet. A small voice he thought had died long ago. They walked through the broken city, slow and quiet. Dane guided her to a hidden shelter built under stone and steel. He had found it days ago, an old mining safe house, untouched by bombs. It had rations, water, and a bed. Inside, Lyra collapsed on the floor. Dane handed her water, which she took with shaking hands. She drank, then looked at him. "You didn't kill me," she whispered. "Why?" Dane didn't answer at first. He sat on a crate, stared at the wall. "I don't know," he finally said. Maybe he was tired of killing. Maybe he just didn't want to be alone anymore. That night, he watched her from across the room. She was curled up, small and fragile, but not afraid anymore. The rifle sat beside him, always close, but untouched. He didn't trust her yet, but something inside him had shifted. He thought about her words again. "I'll give you a family." What did she mean? What kind of family could come from someone like her? He closed his eyes. Sleep didn't come, but for the first time in a long time, he didn't dream of fire and screams. He dreamed of a voice, soft and full of promise, and of a family he never thought he could have again. Morning light crept through cracks in the shelter walls. Dane sat by the entrance, his rifle across his lap, his eyes heavy but alert. He had not slept, not really. His mind kept circling one strange thing, Lyra's whisper, "I'll give you a family." What did it mean? Was it a lie? A trick to stay alive? Aliens didn't speak of family like humans did they? He looked over his shoulder. Lyra still slept, curled in the corner, her silver skin faintly glowing in the dim light. She looked peaceful now, not like the enemy he once fought, not like the monsters who had burned Earth's skies. When she stirred, Dane moved closer, but kept his rifle near. Lyra blinked slowly, adjusting to the soft light. "You stayed," she said quietly. "You didn't run," Dane replied, not smiling, but not cold either. She tried to sit up, but winced, holding her side. "Your wounds are bad," Dane said, tossing her a med patch. She caught it with weak hands, looked at it like it was gold. "Thank you," she whispered, and placed it gently on her wound. There was silence, the kind that sits heavy between two people who don't understand each other yet. Then Dane asked, voice low, "What did you mean about giving me a family?" Lyra didn't speak at once. Her violet eyes looked away, and her fingers traced the floor. She seemed afraid, not of Dane, but of her own words. "My people, they do not make family with love," she said softly. "We are bred, matched by leaders, raised to serve, not to feel." She looked back at Dane. "But I escaped that." Dane crossed his arms. "Escaped how?" Lyra's voice cracked. "I ran from the facility, the one where they create children in tubes." Her hands trembled. "They said I was defective because I cared, because I felt too much." Dane blinked, surprised. Aliens, especially hers, were known to be cold, logical, without emotion. But this one, she looked ready to cry. She pulled something from a pouch near her hip, a small object wrapped in silver cloth. She held it out to him. Dane stepped closer and looked. Inside was a soft, glowing sphere, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "This," she said, "is part of me, and part of something else." "What is it?" Dane asked, frowning. "A seed," Lyra whispered. "Not a weapon, not a tool, but a bond." She held it close to her chest. "It grows only with love, with care, with protection." Dane stared at her, confused. "You're telling me that's your child?" "Not yet," she said, "but it can be." Silence returned, louder this time. The air in the shelter grew thick with meaning, with fear, with unknown feelings. "You think I want this?" Dane said, his voice sharper. Lyra flinched, but answered calmly, "No, I think you need it." He stepped back, shaken. "I lost my family. I don't need a new one made in some alien lab." "I know," Lyra said, her eyes full of sadness. "But this isn't a lab creation. It's real. It's pure." She held the sphere tighter. "It chose you because I did." Dane turned away, his breath heavy. He didn't know what to believe. Was this insanity? Or was this the one thing he had been missing all along? That night, he didn't sleep again. He sat by the door, watching the sky. Outside, the stars blinked like old ghosts. Inside, Lyra slept with the glowing sphere beside her chest. Something about the way she held it stirred something in Dane. She wasn't a soldier or an enemy, not anymore. She was just someone who wanted to belong. He touched the small photo in his jacket, his wife, smiling. Would she hate him for this? Or would she want him to heal, to live again? The next morning, Dane made a decision. He handed Lyra a warm ration bar, then sat beside her. "I'm not saying I believe you," he said, voice low, "but I'll protect you. And that thing, until I know what it really is." Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes shining with gratitude. "That's all I hoped for," she whispered. She placed the glowing sphere gently between them, and for a moment, Dane felt warmth, not from fire or food, but from something deep inside his chest. He didn't understand what was happening, but he no longer wanted to shoot, he wanted to know. And somewhere, in that shelter between silence and breath, a bond had begun to form, one that neither human nor alien could fully explain, but both could feel growing stronger with every heartbeat. Days passed, slow and quiet. Dane had started to feel something strange. Peace. It wasn't normal for a man like him, a soldier used to war, used to silence filled with danger. But now, the silence inside the shelter was different. It was warmer, softer. Lyra spoke little, but her presence filled the space in a way Dane couldn't explain. Each day, he gave her food, wrapped her wounds, and listened to her soft stories. She told him of stars he had never seen, of worlds far away, and of her kind, their cold rules and broken dreams. Dane didn't always understand, but he listened. Something about her voice helped him forget the screams of war. But one morning, Dane woke to find her sweating, pale and shaking. He rushed to her side. "Lyra, what's wrong?" he asked sharply. She couldn't speak, only pointed weakly to her ribs. He pulled aside the bandages, and his breath caught. A dark line, deep and glowing red, had spread from her side to her stomach. The wound wasn't healing. It was getting worse. "You didn't tell me it was this bad," Dane said, anger and fear in his voice. Lyra tried to smile. "Didn't want to bother you," she whispered. "You idiot," Dane muttered, already grabbing his gear. "I need to get you something." He didn't want to leave her alone, but he had no choice. He slung his rifle and slipped out of the shelter, heart pounding. He moved fast through the broken city, his boots echoing on metal and stone. He remembered an old medical outpost 2 miles away. It had been bombed, but some supplies might still remain. As he ran, the memories came back. The last time he rushed to save someone, his wife, buried under rubble. He had dug with his bare hands, screamed her name, cried "you," until his throat gave out. But it was too late then. Now, he couldn't let it be too late again. He reached the ruins of the outpost and searched through debris. Inside a broken cabinet, he found what he needed: 3 med patches, a vial of regen serum, and a power cell. He stuffed them into his pack and ran back, ignoring the burn in his legs. Back in the shelter, Lyra was barely conscious. Her skin had lost its glow, her breathing slow. Dane knelt and worked fast, applying the patches and injecting the serum. "Come on, don't quit now," he said through gritted teeth. After a long hour, she stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "I knew you'd come back," she said softly. Dane let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Don't ever do that again," he whispered. "Next time, tell me when you're dying," she chuckled weakly. "Next time, I'll try." Later that night, Dane sat beside her, cleaning his rifle in silence. Lyra lay on the floor, resting, the small glowing orb placed beside her heart. Dane's eyes kept drifting to it. It pulsed like a soft heartbeat, alive, gentle, watching. "What is that thing really?" he finally asked. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. "It's a memory," she said. "A piece of me. And now, a piece of you." Dane frowned. "You said it needed something to grow?" She nodded. "Trust, warmth, choice. It doesn't force itself on anyone," she added. "It waits." Dane stared at it. The soft glow reminded him of the night light he once set beside his unborn child's crib. A crib that was never used, a child that never came. He reached out slowly and touched the orb. It grew warmer under his fingers, and for a moment he felt something impossible. A tiny voice, not words, just a feeling, hope, like someone small was waiting to be loved. Dane pulled back, shaken. He looked at Lyra. "Why me?" She answered gently. "Because you didn't kill me. You protected me, and you didn't have to. And that kindness woke it up." "I'm not ready to be a father," Dane said, voice shaking. Lyra nodded. "Then don't be, not yet. Just be here," she whispered. "That's all it needs." Dane leaned back against the wall. His mind was full of doubts, questions, and memories. But deep inside, a door had opened. A part of him, long buried, was listening again. He didn't know what this orb truly was, or what kind of life waited if he accepted it. But for now, he knew one thing. He wasn't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, this strange alien woman and the silent orb glowing in the dark were the beginning of something he had once thought was lost forever. Dane sat near the fire, staring at the glowing orb between them. Its soft blue light pulsed gently, slow and calm, like a sleeping child's breath. Lyra lay on her side, stronger now, watching him silently. The fire cracked, filling the shelter with warmth and shadows. Tell me again, Dane said slowly. What happens if I touch it with my heart open? Lyra looked at him carefully, her violet eyes shining in the dim light. It begins the bond, she said softly. Not just with me, but with the soul inside. Dane frowned. You keep saying there's a soul in there, but it's just a light, a warm stone. It's not stone, she whispered. It's living essence. The last of my line, she added. It won't survive without you. Dane looked away, his heart heavy. He didn't want to say it, but he did anyway. I'm not a good man. I've killed more things than I can count. I've lost everything. Lyra didn't argue. She just sat up and moved closer. That's why it chose you, she said. Not because you're perfect, but because you felt true loss. Dane looked at her surprised. She reached out, placed her hand gently on the orb. The light inside shifted, glowing warmer, like it recognized her touch. It doesn't want power, she said. It wants love. But if you can't give it that, it will fade. Silence filled the room again. Dane felt something inside him stir, a fear deeper than any battle he'd fought. What happens if I try, but fail? He asked. Lyra closed her eyes. Then it dies. The weight of that answer pressed down on him. Not a gun, not an enemy, but a small, fragile hope, depending on him. Was he ready for that? I need time, he said. Lyra nodded. Then take it. No one is rushing you. The next day, Dane walked the edge of the ruins alone, his rifle slung behind him but untouched. He stared at the gray sky, the cracked buildings, the silent land. It all looked dead, but inside, something had started growing. He remembered the night before the war began, his wife's hands on his chest, her laughter, the small hope of becoming a father. He remembered buying a crib, painting the nursery, the way he cried when he found the burned remains. That version of him had died, or so he thought. Back in the shelter, he found Lyra sitting with the orb in her lap, humming something soft and beautiful. The sound wasn't human, but it wasn't alien either. It was somewhere in between. Dane watched quietly, feeling something crack inside his chest. Later that night, Lyra looked up at him. Are you ready? She asked, not with pressure, but with calm patience. Dane didn't speak. He just stepped forward, knelt beside her, and reached out. His fingers hovered over the orb. He closed his eyes, thinking not of war or pain, but of the life he wanted, the life he had lost. I don't know if I can be a father, he whispered, but I know I don't want to be alone anymore. Then he placed his hand gently on the orb. At first, nothing happened. Then, warmth spread through his palm, slow, gentle, deep. His breath caught as something inside the orb responded. A pulse, like a heartbeat, met his own, not just a feeling, a connection. He saw flashes, not visions, but emotions, joy, safety, curiosity, a tiny laughter without sound. The orb glowed bright, lighting the whole shelter in. Soft blue and gold. Lyra gasped quietly, tears forming in her eyes. It started, she whispered. It accepted you. Dane pulled his hand back slowly, shaking. What now? He asked. Now it grows, Lyra said, slowly but faster with you near. And one day it will take form. Dane stared at the orb, stunned. I felt something, he said. Something small, but alive. Lyra smiled, wiping a tear from her cheek. That's your child. He swallowed hard. He didn't know what he had just done, not fully, but something in him, broken for so long, felt less empty now. Later, as they sat beside the fire again, Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder. Dane didn't move away. The orb rested between them, glowing faintly like a tiny star. No vows were spoken, no promises made, but in that quiet space, something old and sacred had begun again. A new kind of family was forming, not born from blood or law, but from pain, healing, and quiet choice. The days had grown calm, almost too calm. Inside the shelter, Dane began to forget the weight of war. Lyra's voice, the soft hum of the glowing orb, and the warmth of fire made it feel like a home. Not perfect, but peaceful. The bond between them had deepened. Lyra was stronger now, able to move, able to laugh. The orb pulsed brighter each night, like a heartbeat growing stronger with every shared moment. But peace is a fragile thing in a world still burning, and it shattered just after sunrise. Dane had stepped out to gather dried roots and scan the outer ruins, his boots pressed into the soft soil, his mind distracted by a strange new hope. Then he saw it. Marks in the dirt. Not his, not Lyra's. Footprints, deep and wide with claw edges. He crouched down, hand on his rifle, eyes narrowing. 3 sets, at least. Heavy armored steps, fresh. He ran back, heart pounding, burst into the shelter. "Lyra, hide," he said sharply. She froze, eyes wide. "What is it?" "Hunters," Dane whispered, pulling the rifle from his back. Her face went pale. "They found me." The orb dimmed slightly, as if it sensed danger too. Lyra scooped it up and back. Ked into the shadows, Dane took position by the door. Breath steady, eyes sharp. Minutes passed like hours. Then the sound came. Metal boots against rock. A voice, deep and cruel, echoed outside. "Run if you like, little breeder, but you cannot hide forever." Dane's hands tightened on the rifle. He'd heard that tone before. Cold, confident, a tracker who believed no one could stop him. Another voice joined, mocking. "There's a human scent too. How cute. She made herself a pet." Dane's jaw clenched. They were close now, only a few meters from the door. He waited until the first shadow crossed the entry. Then he fired, clean and sharp. The alien dropped, screaming, sparks flying from his armor. The others scattered, one dove behind a rock, the other rolled into cover. Dane ducked back, reloaded fast. His heart was calm, his mind focused. This was war, this he knew. Grenades clattered, smoke filled the air. Lyra held the orb close, whispering to it, calming it like a mother. "I won't let them take you," she said, her body trembling. Dane rolled from cover and fired again. Another enemy fell, but not before hitting his shoulder with a glancing blast. He grunted, blood staining his shirt, but he stayed standing. The last hunter roared and charged, a massive figure, taller than the rest, covered in bone-like armor. Dane aimed but was hit hard, thrown against the wall. His rifle clattered to the ground. The hunter raised his clawed weapon, ready to strike. Then a voice cut through the chaos. "No!" Lyra stepped forward, holding the orb high. Light burst from it, golden and blinding. The hunter froze mid-strike, eyes wide, armor cracking. From the orb, a wave of energy exploded outward. Not of fire, but of emotion. Dane felt it hit his chest. Not pain, but memory. His wife's laughter, the warmth of love, the feeling of being whole. The hunter screamed as his weapon melted in his hand. He stumbled back, confused, afraid, like he had seen something too pure to touch. And then he ran. Silence returned, thick and strange. Dane pushed himself up, breathing hard. He looked at Lyra, glowing in the light of the orb. She looked like a guardian, like a mother protecting her child with everything she had. "Are you okay?" he asked, limping forward. She nodded slowly. "You saved me." "No," Dane said, looking at the orb. "You saved me." The body of the hunter still burned outside, smoke rising into the sky. Dane buried the others with shaking hands. He didn't enjoy it, but he knew they would have taken everything from him again. That night, Lyra cleaned Dane's wound. She touched his face gently. "I was afraid," she said, "but I wasn't alone." Dane looked at the orb, now pulsing like a slow, steady drum. "Neither was I," he said. He didn't know what this child would become, but he knew what he would do. He would protect it, protect Lyra, and protect the future they were starting to build. Even if more hunters came, even if the world still burned, he would stand between them and this shelter, because for the first time in years, he had something worth protecting. The shelter was quiet again, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet. This time, it felt deeper. heavier, like the moment before a storm. Dane sat by the wall, a cloth tied around his wounded shoulder. Lyra sat across from him, her hands cradling the glowing orb, as if it were her heart itself. Neither of them spoke for a while. The air still smelled of fire. The bodies of the hunters were gone, buried in silence, but their presence lingered in memory. Dane broke the silence. "You said it would grow," he murmured, "that one day it would take form." Lyra nodded, eyes locked on the orb. "It's close," she whispered. "I can feel it. It's ready." Dane leaned forward slowly. "How do we know when it's time?" Lyra gave him a soft smile. "It will tell us," she said, "in its own way." That night, something changed. The orb pulsed faster, stronger, its soft light filling the entire shelter. Then it began to hum, not a noise but a soft vibration in the air, like a gentle song only the heart could hear. Dane stood, alarmed but curious. "Is this normal?" he asked. Lyra rose too, nodding slowly. "Yes," she said. "It's waking up." The orb floated from her hands, rising gently into the air. It spun slowly, releasing threads of golden light that reached the walls, the ceiling, even the ground. Dane took a step back, eyes wide. Lyra didn't move, her gaze locked in wonder. The orb cracked. A fine line ran across it like a shell about to break. From within, soft colors shimmered, pink, blue, silver, shifting like water in sunlight. Then, a sudden burst of warmth filled the room, and the orb split open. Floating in the light was a tiny figure, a child, not fully human, not fully alien. It had soft gray skin, glowing blue eyes, and a small swirl of hair like a silver flame. Its hands reached out, but not with fear, with curiosity. Dane's breath caught in his throat. He had seen strange things in war, but never anything so pure. Lyra stepped forward first, her arms open. The child drifted toward her and settled softly into her embrace. "It's alive," Dane said, barely able to speak. Lyra smiled, tears in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "and it knows you." The child turned its glowing eyes toward Dane and reached out. He hesitated, but only for a second. Then he walked forward and knelt beside them. The child touched his hand, and in that moment, something moved through him. It wasn't a voice, not words, just a feeling, warmth, safety, belonging, a message written in silence. "You are my father." Dane's throat tightened. He hadn't felt this much in years. Not since he held his wife's belly, not since he dreamed of being a dad. And now, somehow, he was again. He gently picked the child up, holding it with care. It was small, warm, and unbelievably light, but in his arms, it felt like the whole galaxy rested there. Lyra knelt beside him, her face glowing with quiet joy. "It is part of both of us," she said, "and now it is part of you." "What will it become?" Dane asked, still stunned. Lyra looked up at the stars through a crack in the roof. "Something new," she said. "Something the universe has never seen before." The child cooed softly and rested its head against Dane's chest. He looked down, a strange laugh escaping his throat. "I don't even know what to name you," he whispered. Lyra smiled. "It will tell us one day." Time passed differently after that. Dane repaired the roof, Lyra gathered supplies. The child, who they simply called Starling for now, watched everything with wide, glowing eyes. It learned fast, mimicking smiles, gestures, even laughter. But as joy grew inside the shelter, danger crept outside. Unseen eyes watched from afar, mechanical drones, hovering in silence. The moment the orb awakened, it sent a signal. Now the ones who created Lyra knew she was alive. And worse, they knew the child had been born. That night, Lyra sat beside Dane, the child asleep in a blanket. "We don't have much time," she said quietly. "They will come." Dane nodded, his jaw tight. "Let them," he said, placing his hand on the child's head. "I've lost a family before. I won't lose another." Outside, a red light blinked in the dark sky. The hunters weren't gone, not yet, and this time they weren't coming to capture, they were coming to erase what they feared. But inside the shelter, hope had taken form. A warrior, a runaway, and a child born of both. Together, they would face whatever came next. Because sometimes, family isn't what you're born into, it's what you fight for. And Dane was ready to fight again, not for orders, not for Earth, but for them. The night was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that comes before chaos. High above the ruins, hidden among clouds, a dark ship hovered without sound. Its surface was smooth, black, and cold like glass. Inside, machines whispered orders, and red eyes blinked awake. Back on the G-28. Round inside the shelter, Dane finished sealing the walls. He had reinforced the door, set traps at every entrance, and charged his last 2 grenades. His wounded shoulder still ached, but he didn't care. He wasn't just protecting a shelter anymore. He was protecting a home. Lyra placed Starling in the softest corner, wrapping the child in thick cloth. The small hybrid cooed and blinked its glowing eyes. It didn't know what was coming, but it felt the fear in the air, and it held tightly to the tiny locket Dane had given it. "They're close," Lyra said, standing beside Dane. Her eyes flashed with strength, no longer just a survivor, but a mother ready to fight. Dane looked at her and nodded. "Then we make our stand," he said, "together." Moments later, the sky opened with fire. The dark ship descended like a falling shadow. Dust rose as the engines roared, and from its sides, armored figures leapt to the ground, silent, sharp, and merciless. Dane waited until they crossed the outer sensor lines. Then, boom! 2 traps exploded in a flash of light and flame. Several hunters fell, screaming, but more pushed forward without hesitation. "They brought their elite," Lyra said, peeking from a hole in the wall. Dane gritted his teeth, loading his rifle. "Good," he said. "Let's show them what a real family looks like." The first wave hit hard. Dane fought like a man with nothing to lose. His shots were clean, fast, and brutal. Lyra moved beside him with speed and grace, her hands glowing with strange energy, her bloodline's gift. Together, they moved like a storm, protecting the child at all costs. But the enemy was endless. For every one they dropped, 2 more took its place. Soon, the shelter was shaking under pressure, walls cracking from impact. Inside, Starling trembled, eyes glowing brighter. It reached out, not with hands, but with its mind. It felt the fear, the danger, the love between Dane and Lyra, and something inside it broke open. A wave of light burst from the child. It flowed through the walls, through the weapons, through the sky, and every hunter it touched stopped. Their weapons dropped, their limbs froze. One by one, they fell to their knees, their armor turning dull. They looked around, confused, no longer machines, but beings suddenly filled with emotion. "What's happening?" Dane whispered. Lyra gasped. "The child is bonding with them. It's not just us, it's reaching their hearts." Starling floated into the air, glowing like a tiny sun. Its voice, soft and silent, echoed in every mind present. "Stop hurting my family." The enemy commander stepped forward, larger than the rest. His armor hissed, his eyes burning red. He raised his weapon and shouted, "You were made to serve, not to feel." Dane stepped in front of Starling, rifle aimed at the commander's heart. "No," he growled. "You made her to be silent, but she chose to speak. You made that child to be controlled, but it chose love." Lyra joined him, standing tall. "We are not yours," she said. "We are not tools, not breeders, not weapons." The commander laughed, but it was hollow. He aimed at Dane, finger ready to fire. But then Starling's light grew blinding. A final wave hit the commander. He screamed, not in pain, but in memory. His knees buckled as feelings returned. Ones he had buried long ago, tears streamed from his eyes as he dropped his weapon. I remember my mother," he whispered, falling to the ground. One by one, the others dropped their weapons and walked away. No command, no fight left in them. Just silence, peace, and wonder. The ship above turned and rose back into the clouds. No more hunters, no more threats. Dane dropped his rifle and fell to one knee, breath shaking. Lyra knelt beside him, arms around his shoulders. They looked at Starling, floating gently, eyes soft, smile small. "You did that?" Dane asked, still amazed. The child nodded once, then settled into Dane's arms. Lyra leaned against them both. "We're safe now," she whispered. Dane looked at the cracked roof, at the stars above. He had gone to war for orders, for survival. But today, he fought for something greater. Not for Earth, not for victory, but for family. And in that small broken shelter, in the ruins of a dying world, a soldier, an alien, and their child built something unbreakable. Not just a home, but a future.